So what we're going to do today is we're going to spend some time understanding Claude deeply, right? We're going to spend some time in understanding how you can use Claude in 5 different methods. We're going to spend time understanding how you can supercharge the usage of Claude as a PM, right? Of course, you already would know certain basics of what Claude is, how it works, what skills are, projects are, but we're going to break all of that down and try and understand it into 4 parts right now. So what I was saying was that we are going to be a working session on whimsical Claude Notion. We'll try out a few things to see how Claude can work and what could be the best way to use Claude, and then we are going to put some prompts, help you show how you can do that. And then if you stick around by the end of the session, I'm also going to give you a PM prompting guide, right? So this is like a very detailed playbook that we created here at Ayuda to explain how you can prompt. So it's got, more than 45 prompts that you could use as a product manager. It's a 30-page document. So I'm going to share it with you at the end if you stick around. So that's what I have in cover for you today. So let's get started. Now, most of you already know what Claude does, right? Most of you already know what Claude is all about and have been using it in some form or the other, right? You've been using Claude as your meeting note synthesizer. You've been using Claude to generate ideas and so on and so forth, right? But as a product manager, there are 5 archetypes that I have created, and I'm going to talk about them today, right? Now, these are not the only 5. You can actually have a lot more. So it's not like these 5 are the only ones that you need to think about or you can, implement on. But these 5 are the fundamental pieces of what Claude can do. Number one, as you can see, is Claude as a PM intern, right? Now, what does this mean? This basically means you can use Claude for, you know, so you can use Claude for synthesis, you can use Claude for calendar management, right? You could use Claude for email management and all these, right? So this is typically a PM's work, right? Trying to set up meetings, trying to set up this, even tickets management, right? When I say ticket management, let me be a little more specific, and then I'll say Jira management, right? So you could use Claude for Jira management, email, synthesis, calendar management, and so on. We'll talk about these in a bit. Then you could use Claude as your brainstorming partner, right? And when we say brainstorming partner, I'm just going to move all of this further up so that we have space to add others. So when I say brainstorming partners, what I mean is we're going to study a technique called inversion today, which is basically simply asking Claude to invert its own ideas and how it works and why it's important. So we're going to study that today in the next 1 hour. Researcher, so we're going to study research mode on Claude, right? And we're going to study a very interesting piece, which is we're going to study the concept of synthetic users. So we're going to study what synthetic users are, how can Claude make synthetic users for you and help you on that, right? So I'm just going to break it down into 2. So I'm going to do this. Then we're going to study the common ones. I mean, I'm sure you have done some piece of this already. We're going to study Claude as a builder. So we're going to study building prototypes, right? And then we are going to finally study Claude as a validator, where we're going to study Claude as red team. I'm going to explain what red team is. We're going to study Claude as a user panel, and we're going to study Claude as a reviewer, right? So that's the spectrum of what we want to do today. I'll just move everything close by so that you can see it. And if you want a screenshot, you can take a screenshot as well. Although this link will be available on the YouTube recording when we share that as well. So as you can see here, so Claude for PMs, we have figured out 5 archetypes that I'm going to discuss with you today. Number 1 is Claude as a PM intern, Claude as a brainstorming partner, Claude as a researcher, builder, validator. Now within this, as a PM intern, I'm going to talk about email management, synthesis, calendar management, Jira management, and all that. Then as a brainstorming partner, I'm going to talk about a technique called inversion. Then as a synthetic user, then as a researcher, sorry, I'm going to talk about how Claude can make synthetic users for you and what is research mode on Claude. Then Claude as a builder, where we're going to talk about how Claude can build prototypes. And then Claude as a validator, where we're going to talk about concepts around red team, concepts around user panels and reviewers and so on and so forth. Right. So let's get started. We'll dive straight into Claude. So this is what Claude looks like. If you just go on the home, this is what Claude looks like, and that's it, right? There is nothing here. We're going to work all on Claude itself, not really on any slides today. So on Claude, what you can understand is there are a few key concepts that we're going to study today. The first thing that we are studying is Claude as a PM intern, right? So I'm just going to zoom in to just this part for you to see. So Claude as a PM intern is what we're going to study. Now, the core aspect of using Claude as a PM intern is integrations. So when you go on Claude and when you go on new chat, you see this plus icon, right? Now, most people use this text box, type here and use Claude here. But when you click on this plus icon, you can actually integrate Claude with a lot of the other tools that you use, right? For example, you could integrate, do you see two options here? There is an option called connectors. There's an option called plugins, right? So connectors basically allow you to connect your existing products, allows you to connect your existing apps to Claude. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to go here and I'm going to add a connector. I'm going to just assume that, let's say, all my documents are on Notion. So I'm just going to click this and I'm going to click on connection. What it does is it opens my Notion MCP. So connectors work on MCP. So Claude's MCP and connection all get connected. And all I have to do is I have to just give permission for my workspace. Once this is done, Claude has got access to this. Of course, you can only do it when it's allowed in your company. But usually if your company has Claude, then yeah, it's already available, right? So that is how you can come. Now, the moment this happens, I can do a lot of things, right? For example, I can just tell Claude to give me a summary of everything in my Notion space. So, hey, Claude, can you figure out whatever is in my Notion and give me a synthesis of the file names? So I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to use a smaller model for this. This session is not for models for now, just so that it's a faster outcome and there is not a lot of time spent here. Of course, it's searching the sources. So here is a quick synthesis of what is in my Notion space. So just 2 pages show up. Quick card retention, that's the focus of what we're going to do today. So I've created that page for today. Then there is a website redesign kickoff. That's a template page that is there. And if I go back to my actual Notion, that's actually true, right? Maybe later. So if you see inside Notion, there is a quick cart retention project that is there. That project actually has a lot of user interviews inside. And then inside this, otherwise, there isn't too much, right? There is meetings, of course, these are all, there is a website redesign kickoff that is there that it picked and all of that. So it's able to pick out what data is in my Notion and get details from them, right? You can similarly add other connectors. So just click on add connector and then, maybe if you want to connect Atlassian, right? So if you connect Atlassian, then your Jira, your Confluence, everything starts coming right into Claude, right? So it's a very easy way. It's a very nice way to actually integrate everything. And that's where Claude can work as an intern for you, right? Why? Because these kind of things were, these kind of things required manual effort. I'll show you on Jira, for example. So this is the right account. So I just select access. It gives me, it is asking that, hey, you're going to give read access, you're going to give write access and search access. And do you want to give all of this? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to give all of this access. So now you can actually do a lot of these, basic things. For example, hey, Claude, can you go through all the Jira tickets on the Atlassian workspace that I have and give me the ones that have a comment, or maybe count the number of ones that have comments, right? So this is just to give you an understanding of the fact that now that it has access to all this data, it can actually act like an actual intern, right? Because all of this data is integrated in Claude and you can set reminders for it, right? You can set reminders on what is going on and all of that. So it's basically now going to look at each of these elements, each of these things, and it's going to figure out which tickets actually have comments, right? As you can see, it actually has access to my Atlassian account and you're going to do that, right? Now, so as you can see, it's able to fill it, right? So this Scrum number 22, Scrum 38, 37, 38, these are the ones that are there. So it's total tickets 38, tickets with comment 1, tickets without comment 37, right? So it's able to figure out the ticket with comment is this, Scrum 22. And now I can actually ask Claude to answer this on my behalf. Can you answer the ticket with comment with a generic comment on my behalf? Right? So what it can do is then it can, actually answer these questions as well. I just have to allow it, and then Claude can act on this my behalf. Now, this is of course an easy thing, right? It's saying that it's post. It's just saying that thanks for the detailed clarification. This makes sense now. We'll proceed based on the breakdown provided. So it's already commented on my behalf on Atlassian and Jira, which makes it, really simple. Although this is the first level of usage, right? Now I'm going to show you another use case, which is what we're going to use today for our entire learning. But what we've done today is I have created a Notion workspace. I have dumped some user interviews on it, and I'm going to use that to showcase how you can use Claude as a intern, right? So now you understood that the base of using Claude as an intern is integrating all these tools here. So I'm just going to go to Claude, and we're going to go somewhere called as projects on Claude. Now, what are projects? Projects are basically places where a group of chats can be stored with shared context, right? So for example, when you create a chat on Claude and then you keep chatting with that one particular chat continuously, what you get is the Claude is able to remember what is going on in that chat. Now, but imagine you have hundreds of such chats, right? And then you want to interspace Claude with access to that. And you don't want Claude to get confused with other chats that you're doing. So what a project does is it allows you to create a subversion of Claude itself, where you can give some custom instructions, and you can also allow Claude to share and remember context from different chats. So as you can see here, what I've created a project. Now let's assume that we are focusing on a quick commerce app like a Zepto or a Blinkit or DoorDash or whatever. We as a product manager are facing the problem of improving retention for this app. And that's why we are going to focus on trying and improving it, right? So I've created a project. This project is called Quick Cart Retention Brain. And then I have created some instructions. So as you can see, what this project is, what it does, who is in this project, and so on and so forth. And then I've created some general files, right? Which is what are the voice tone restrictions? Is there, what is the PRD template that I'm going to use? What is the product context and all of that, right? So what I'm just trying to do is I'm trying to create a clear-cut understanding of what Quick Cart is going to do. I'm trying to build that understanding in a project itself. Why is a project important? Because I will actually have multiple chats, right? As I go through this entire process of conducting this research, I'm going to have multiple chats that I'm going to use as I go along. And that's why it's important for me to have a project. Right. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use Claude as an intern, right? Which is where I'll just copy paste this little prompt where what I'm trying to do is I have asked Claude to pull out my churn study from Notion. Now inside Notion, what I have done is if you go inside this, I've created a project called Quick Cart Retention. And if you open this project, I have just dumped all user interviews in this project. So I've dumped 6 user interviews in this project. I've dumped actual transcripts and everything so that Claude just has these transcripts. So imagine you being as a PM, you've done this research, you've gone to your customers, you've spoken to them, and now all the recording of that is just dumped here. Now, what I have done or what I have told Claude is that, hey, go ahead and find the database with churn study user interviews, and then Quick Cart Workspace will read all these transcripts. And then I want to produce this. I want to produce a theme analysis, verbatim evidence, contradictions, jobs to be done, and so on and so forth, right? So I've written a prompt. How to write this prompt is also important, but that's a different session, different discussion. I'm going to share a prompting cheat book, like I said at the end, but I'm just helping you understand how Claude can perform actions as an intern. Right? The moment I hit enter, Claude has access to my Notion, which means that it is going to be able to search the Notion database. As you can see, it's searching the Notion database, it's finding this, and it's saying that, hey, I can see all the 6 interviews that are there, plus the parent and user interviews page. Let me fetch all transcripts in full, right? So it's now fetching all data, and it's going to synthesize it for me, just like how an intern would. Right. So if I go back while it's doing this work, if I go back to this, now imagine based on these connections, what all you can do. You can connect your Gmail and then ask Claude to reply to important mails on your behalf. Or if not reply, at least prioritize those important mails for you on behalf. You can integrate your Slack and tell Claude that, hey, the moment there is an important email that comes from my manager, it needs to come to my Slack directly so that you can reply to your manager extremely fast. So all of these would have been, an assistant's work, an intern's work, someone who, just there to execute kind of stuff. But you can now actually use all of this to your benefit using Claude and, have your little junior assistant with you, right? This is a very smart assistant, mind you. Right. So as you can see, it's gotten created, it's fetched all the transcript here, and it's created a churn study for me, right? So it's created the theme analysis, it's ranked, what are the themes that are coming through. Then it has ranked verbatim evidence, what are the exact words that it could find in the transcript that actually justify these themes. And then, of course, it's going to keep continuing and building it on. Right. But essentially, the theme of using Claude as an intern is using Claude almost as a very intelligent assistant, right? You integrate all your daily tools and put them here and ask Claude to run your life, right? So to give you an example, I had integrated my Slack, my email, Jira, Confluence, all of that right here. And then this becomes your workspace, right? You can do everything on Claude only and just expect it to be working extremely smoothly and extremely fine, right? So that is how easy it is or how great it is in terms of how you can use Claude as an intern. Right now, since I had given a very detailed prompt, the outcome is also going to be detailed because I have actual transcripts. Now, one thing that you remember here is that Claude has not been able to replace the interview taking process itself, right? That's one mistake that PMs make. I still ensured that the interview was taken by me. It's just that the intern or the assistant that I have now is able to synthesize it very, very well, right? That's the only thing that is there. And it's going to give me like a full blown study of whatever is required. And that's what I want, right? That's what I need out of my Claude essentially, right? I don't want to go through each and every line, whatever people have said, remember all these things and come out. I want Claude to synthesize, and I don't want Claude to be, just very surface level about it, right? As you can see, if you see the detail in which it has gone through, it has actually given me an extremely detailed each and everything that I have asked for. It's actually figured that out and given me a great research study, right? It's completed my research study for me. Having said that, of course, I had to still do the interview. Like I said, similarly, so synthesis, similarly, you can ask Claude to manage your email. Just go here again, plus connectors, you add a connector and just search Gmail here, and that's it. That's all you need, right? The moment your Gmail is connected, all your emails can now be pulled onto Claude, and then Claude can do all the productivity on top of it, right? So that is how you can use Claude as an intern. Now let's move a little deeper into it and let's try and understand further steps. The second thing that we're going to understand is Claude as a brainstorming partner, right? Now, a lot of people, ask Claude for ideas, but to be very honest, all these AI tools, they are not so good at coming out of ideas on their own. You might have seen it. If you ask Claude to come up with their own ideas to improve retention or churn or whatever at any product, they will struggle, right? Instead, if you actually go ahead and ask Claude to validate your ideas, ask Claude to do something on top of whatever you've already done, it's going to do a better job. So what we're going to study next is we're going to study a very simple technique using which you can make Claude your brainstorming partner, right? What is this technique? This technique is very, very simple. This technique is called inversion, right? Now, what is inversion? Inversion basically means using Claude in a way in which it challenges its own self and comes back with questions, right? That's what I'm going to do. Now, let's assume that I got this research study, but I'm not happy with it, right? This is just my user interview synthesized. So I'm just going to paste this prompt and I'm going to show you where. So here I'm telling you that, hey, I have a decision to make and I want you to interrogate that decision before you recommend anything. So inversion basically asks Claude to interrogate things based on certain context and use that to make decisions. So we'll see that. So you have this whole project's context. Now, of course, like I told you, I can add it into this chat, or I can just go into the project and create a different chat. So this is my chat where I synthesize all my notes on this thing. I can now go and create a different chat, but this new chat already has a context of the older chat. So that's the beauty of using projects. So now if you say you already have this whole project's context, our product, economics, and everything. Now, what I need to make is what should the retention squad build next quarter to move first to second order conversion from so on and so forth. Don't recommend anything else. Work in three passes, right? Pass one, what you already know. Pass two, what you still need from me. And pass three is basically the contract, right? What we are going to do. So this is basically a way in which we are going to invert it. I'm just going to run this so that you see the outcome of this as well. Basically, what we are trying to do here is we are inverting whatever Claude does to not go from generating it from whatever I gave it to actually going backwards, right? So I'll show you what I mean there. So what I'm trying to say to Claude is, hey, what do you first already know? First list that down, right? Once you've list that down, talk about what do you don't know, right? So now what does this do? LLMs by their design are designed to think and feel like they already know everything, right? So whatever their context is, they already are designed to understand that and feel like that is their entire context. But here, when I'm inverting it, I'm actually asking the LLM to tell me what does it still need from me. So I'm telling the LLM to ask me questions that they do not have answers to based on whatever the research is done. So as you can see, what it has done is it has figured out what it already knows. So it's figured out 6 things from the project's record that materially shape any recommendation. So it already knows fees fund, 24-hour coupon, notification, whatever. But what's more important is this, what I need to know. So as you can see, it has asking me questions, and these are not like standard questions. These are actually proper in-depth questions where it's asking me that, hey, what does the second order conversion funnel actually break down by failure mode, right? Do you have any cohort data of why 22% people have churned, right? And there it's giving me reasons why it's asking this question. Similarly, it's asking another question of what is the current D7 order rate by segment? Specifically, why does routine toppers cohort second cohort window looks like versus September, right? So basically what it's trying to do is it's not stopping at whatever context I've given them. And that's one of the biggest problems of using Claude for product managers, which is whatever context you give, by default, an LLM is not designed to contradict it. I'll tell you why. See, the entire cost of an LLM is on generating tokens, right? Now, the moment any LLM actually goes ahead and disagrees with you, it has to generate more tokens per run than compared to them. And most of the products that you see, Claude, GPT, Grok, etc., they run on a subscription fee, which means that the moment I've paid Claude $20 or I've paid GPT $20, I have access to it, right? I have almost infinite access to it. With Claude, of course, your usage gets limited after a while, but that's still fair while away. I have a lot of access to it, which is why the LLMs are trained to be concise. The LLMs are trained to reduce the depth of the output that they are doing, which is fundamentally against what we as product managers want to do. We actually want to ensure that the answers are more deep. We want to ensure that unexplored chartered territories are actually explored, which is why we are going to try Claude as a brainstorming partner. And the best way to do it is inversion. I have certain inversion prompts added to the prompt book that I'm going to share at the end. So that's something that you can use. But essentially, inversion is just a very simple method of telling Claude to first list down whatever it knows, then list down whatever it doesn't know. And then once both of them are listed down, it basically says that, hey, what is the contract, right? After I get answers to this is what I'm going to do, right? So I'll tell you explicitly what changed versus what has changed versus what I would have recommended without the knowledge, and which single answer of yours motivates. So this is basically just to help you understand that there is a difference that gets created. But the main part of this is now, instead of going ahead with your points and just doing a basic run of an LLM for it, Claude has asked you 7 really deep questions, which you need to find answers to. And the moment you give answers to those questions, Claude is going to generate a better recommendation system for it, right? So always and always, whenever you are trying to use Claude for anything, whenever you're trying to use Claude for brainstorming, research, discussions, always use inversion as a tactic. What does inversion mean? It could simply be even you telling Claude that, hey, tell me 10 questions without which you would have never made a decision if you did not have all this data already. Or ask me 5 questions that will impact your decision the most. Forget whatever context I have already shared, right? So always go ahead and give Claude an opportunity to invert for you to be able to look at Claude as a brainstorming partner. Right. Now, the next piece that we're going to study about is very interesting, and that's called Claude as a researcher. Right now, we've understood that, hey, Claude can act as an intern. It can act as a brainstorming partner by asking Claude to generate questions that it needs answers to. But now we're going to talk about something which is a very nice and very growing concept in the world of product management, which is called as synthetic users. Now, see, before this, what used to happen? Before this, the moment you created a study, right? Let's assume you interviewed 100 users. Those 100 users now stuck in that interview study, and that's it. Unless you go back to those 100 users, you are actually never going to interact with them again and again and again. But now with Claude, there is a change here. What is that change? I can actually go ahead, I'll go back to this project. I can actually go ahead to the project and ask Claude to create synthetic users based on all the user interviews I have done. Right now, what it means is that now let's assume that there is a guy called Karan. Right? I did an interview with him. I have all his details, what his persona is, what his likeliness is, what does he like, what does he dislike, everything. Now I can ask Claude to make a standard persona of Karan, which is the persona that I'm going to use in the future to ask questions, to brainstorm, to validate, to invalidate, and so on and so forth. So here, that's what we are going to do in this prompt, right? Now, what I'm saying is that, hey, let's turn this research into a permanent asset. I want use the 6 transcripts you pulled from Notion and of course this project's context and build me a synthetic user panel, which means 6 rigorous consultable user models that I can reuse in any future conversation in this project. So whenever you, for example, think of a solution, you can ask Claude now, hey, what do you think Karan would think about this solution? Now, Claude has created a virtual persona of your users using the transcript with that person that you created, and that is now going to give you a permanent research asset, which was not possible earlier, right? So earlier what used to happen was you spoke to a guy or a person or a girl. That person would only give you more information when you speak to them again. But now with these LLMs, it's actually possible to get these LLMs to create these, virtual, or what the market term is synthetic. So if you search synthetic users online, you will see a lot of products actually doing this, building synthetic users and all of that, right? So I'm just going to hit enter on this so that you're going to be able to see the output, and then you're going to be able to appreciate how Claude has changed this game here, right? So again, like I said, it can read all the project files, so everything in this project is available for Claude to check. So if you just click on this, okay, it's still reading, so it will come, but everything in the project is available for this. And now it's going to create a user panel that I'm going to be able to use in this project forever, right? So it has got the full context. The Q2 churn summary exists in summarized form. I don't have the raw Notion transcripts, only the synthesized evidence. Okay, I can ask it to say that, hey, you can use your Notion to collect it. But since there is another chat that already has this synthesis, I don't need to go back to Notion again and again, right? Because going back to Notion, pulling the original transcripts and everything is required, right? So now, good, I have what I need for the document creation. This is an internal document, so the line doesn't apply here. It's going to build it as a professional internal document using its document creator, right? So it's going to create a document, basically a Word doc for us, where this synthetic user panel is going to be present, right? And then you can reuse this synthetic user panel again and again, right? You will have the opportunity to speak to this panel. You can run a mock user interview with this panel. So all the things that you would have otherwise waited for a user to reach to you, otherwise waited for a user to speak to you, are now all directly possible via Claude, right? So it's very interesting in terms of how Claude can improve this aspect and really work with you as a researcher, right? We'll just wait for Claude to complete this while I cover the next piece, which is research mode. Now, Whenever I say researcher, of course, one of the most common aspects of Claude is research mode. So if you tap this, if you click research mode here and ask Claude to do any research, it's going to spend 10 minutes, maybe sometimes 15 minutes to do a very detailed research of the market, right? So research mode is just basically a way by which you tell Claude that figure out every single thing you can find on the web. Doesn't matter if it takes 10 minutes, doesn't matter if it takes 15 minutes. I want you to figure out every single thing that exists in the market and create a research report for me. So if there is a market that you don't know much about, if there is a market that you want to speak more about or that you want to gain more knowledge about, you can actually use research mode to get that, right? I'm just going to open Claude in another chat. I'm just going to enable research. You see this icon that comes in, and I can say, use this project's context and conduct a detailed research on quick commerce in India and figure out potential directions that I could explore based on the problem I'm solving. So I'm just saying that, hey, go ahead in your research mode. All I've done is I've enabled research mode. So I'm just going to click done and it's going to do a research mode here, right? It's going to take a bit of time. As I said, research mode can usually take, minutes. It takes 15 minutes, 20 minutes, sometimes even half an hour to actually run. It will ask a lot of questions. So as you can see, it's asked a lot of questions. So it's asking which of the 5 retention pain points, because in my transcript, there were further pain points. I'll just say I'm looking at fee resentment as the point. Second question is I need the output to inform a PRD. And third is yes, you can include quick commerce options outside India as well. Right, so I'm just sending it answers to the questions that it asks, and then it's going to give me a connector. So I'm just going to confirm, and then it's going to do a research. Right now, like I said, research takes a lot of time on any. GPT also has research mode. Claude also has research mode. So it takes up a lot of time, but that's fine. It's, a one-time thing. It's going to take its time to set it up, and then it's going to run for around 10-15 minutes to do that. We're not going to go through that entire research in this session, but of course, it's easy for you to understand and see how you can implement this, right? This document is also getting built. You can see what Claude is doing live here. So it's basically running code to create this document as well. And that's what it's going to eventually present in front of me as my user panel, as my synthetic user panel. So we'll wait for this to get generated. And meanwhile, we'll move to the next one, right? Which is Claude as a builder. Now, Claude as a builder has actually a lot of takers. And I think a lot of you have tried it, might have tried it on your own as well. Claude can build great prototypes, right? Claude can do a great job at building really good prototypes as well, which is where it can actually create real living artifacts, just like a Lovable would or a Base 44 would or all these products would, right? So we're going to do that as well. I'm just going to go ahead and paste a prompt here. Now this prompt is to convert this, all what we have discussed into a prototype. So here, as you can see, take the smart order nudge to a prototype. I've given all the design system, I've given all the usage rules and all of that. Don't worry, you will have a prompt book that's going to help you come with such great prompts when you actually apply it on your own and see, why these prompts work really well. But I've created a really detailed prompt of how you can actually prototype, right? This is an actual prompt taken from one of the companies in quick commerce and tweaked based on our use case. So what I've done is I've given this prompt, and the moment you are able to convey this to Claude, it can take all the context from this project and actually create a great prototype for you, right? We'll just wait for what's going on. So as you can see, 214 sources in the research mode already. It's run for around 2 minutes already. So like I said, it's going to pretty much run for around 10-15 minutes to give us the answer. The document is also getting generated. Documents usually generate a bit of time. As you can see, it's still getting generated because we've added so much context, right? We've added 6 real interviews. Now we've created an in-depth persona on top of it. And now we're asking it to detail. So it's going to take a bit of time, but that's fine. We still want the best document out of it. And then, it's going to create a full prototype as well. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to understand whatever Claude can do, and taking it right to the limit as a PM. Right now, When I say that, I don't mean that these are the five only things that are possible. There are much more things that are actually possible. But then these are like five pillars of what you can use when you are a user of Claude, right? These are five really strong pillars that you can always have a use of, right? Let's see if any one of our work is done. The prototype is of course going to take time, but of course I will show you the final version out of it. Will take like 2-3 minutes, which is fine. But meanwhile, what we're going to do is we're going to move to the last part and give you like some concepts of whatever this is, right? Now, imagine all of this is done, right? Now, a big part of what Claude already has is earlier when you built let's say a prototype or you built a design, you built a Figma file, whatever, you had to take it back to your users to get validation, right? You had to speak to your users again and again. You had to ask, hey, sir, can you try this? Have you seen this? Would you like this? And so on and so forth. But now, because you've built, let's see if it is then, yeah, we'll have to wait a bit longer and hopefully it doesn't break. But yeah, let's continue what we were saying. So what I was saying at that point was that we can, of course, the thought process here is to understand that these are five pillars, right? For a PM, these are five most important things that they can do or they can use, and one of the better ways of utilizing Claude. Now, the last part of this is Claude as a validator. So what I was saying was that earlier you used to have a situation where you needed to, you needed to understand what you built. You then needed to take it to your users and then get feedback from your users and then decide whether it was worth building or not. Now, Claude has changed all that game directly. Why? Because now what you can do is instead of, speaking or instead of going back to your users, you can create this synthetic user panel that I was talking about. And that panel itself becomes the person or the panel that you go back and test your prototypes on. So once, for example, your prototypes get built, right? Once your prototype gets built, you actually can go ahead and tell Claude to use that. So I'm just going to copy paste the prototype prompt again here and hit enter so that it's probably hopefully going to be able to continue building it. Yeah, so it's continuing now. So whenever you kind of build that prototype, you can now go to a synthetic user panel. You can say that, hey, can you ask Karan how this worked, or can you ask Mira, will this solution work for them? So once again, because you've pulled in transcripts, because you've had conversations with them, because you've entered, what they want, how they feel, what they do, and so on and so forth, you can actually get an extremely accurate answer, an extremely accurate version of it, which is why Claude can work as the final piece of it, which is your red team. Now, red team is what? Red team is again the team that detracts the ideas. So red team essentially stands for a team that will say no to whatever you build, right? Remember the concept of inversion that we studied earlier, right? I'm just going to link that here again from here to here, right? I'm just going to connect this back here, right? So I'm just saying this why? Because your red team is basically the team that requires or that says no to everything, right? This is the team that says that, hey, you cannot do this, or this is the team that says that, no, this is not the right format, or this is not the solution. We want something else. So you can create a red team panel for you, which basically gives you pointers of where it will fail. Once again, inversion, right? Because when you're looking at real suggestions, when you're looking at accurate suggestions, the best way to do it via Claude is to ask Claude to disagree with you. When Claude disagrees with you, that is when it can actually create magic for you, because that is when it can actually build a very strong question set. And that is why using Claude as a red team is very useful, right? Just repeating what a red team is. A red team is basically a team in your brainstorming discussion that will disagree with everything that you have said. So what does it do? This gives you more and more ability to actually get ideas of why this will fail, get ideas of why this will not work, get ideas of why this is incorrect. So that's something that you could do. The resources, it's still okay. Now the research is ready. So we can go here. And as you can see, so this is a very detailed, it's gone through 317 sources. It's gone through 7.5 minutes because it was a basic question. So that's only 7.5 minutes, but it's created an extremely detailed deep dive of my company, of course, since I had given context of my company, but then about Zepto, Blinkit, Swiggy, Big Basket, everything, right? Swiggy One, Blinkit, Zepto Pass. So whatever is there in the market, it's actually created a pretty detailed research report out of it, and that's going to be used, right? So that is basically how you use Claude as a researcher, right? Let's hope our synthetic document is getting closer to completion. Hopefully, it is getting closer to completion. While our prototype is also getting built. So those two will, of course, take a bit of time, which is okay. We can spend that time and wait for them to complete. Meanwhile, I'm going to tell you about the last piece, which is the red team, user panel, and reviewer, right? So we'll use this chat and we'll just go back to the red team, right? Now, what does a red team prompt look like? A red team prompt basically looks like this, which is attacking the plan, right? Up to this point, you've been helping. So once the prototype is ready, you basically say that, hey, we built this, we got this from our users, we got this, but now I want you to actually attack this. I want to figure out what are all the possible reasons why this fails. So I've got three personas. Each one has real incentive to see this fail, and each one may stay fully in their character, their vocabulary, incentives, and their worldview. Persona one is the skeptical staff engineer. So this is the person who's been with the company for a several amount of time and will always say no to whatever you bring as a PM. Then the CFO, the finance officer, who's going to come and say that, hey, we don't have budget for this, we cannot do this, and so on and so forth. And the third is Kabir, who's the actual user from our panel, the synthetic panel, and he's reacting as himself, and he's already used other apps and will check prices and blah, blah, blah. So what I'm trying to do as in the last piece of using Claude as a validator is I'm using Claude as someone from the red team. I'm using Claude as someone who will definitely disagree with whatever I have built. Now, you can use this to make sure your stakeholder management becomes better. So what I personally would recommend using this is put it around and say, why would my manager say no to it? Or put it around saying, why would my CEO say no to it? Put it around and saying, why would the finance head actually disagree to this? So this gives you few personas internally and gives you a better preparation for all the questions that they will ask. Similarly, you can add personas from your actual users, the synthetic personas that you have created as a problem statement as well, right? Those personas will also be part of this entire discussion. Those personas can also reject whatever you have built, and that really helps you plug all the holes, right? The second part of Claude as a validator, which is the last part, is the user panel, right? Now, like I said, since you have created a user panel here, which is getting created, as you can see, so this user panel can be used now for a variety of reasons, right? You can run a random user interview with this. You can ask your user panel to actually go ahead and give you reasons why this will not work. You can ask your user panels to appreciate you. You can ask your user panel to simulate certain user interview situations, simulate certain usage of prototypes, all of these. So all of these things are things that you could essentially do on your own, and these are things that can become easy for you to replicate whenever you're using Claude as a validator. The last piece is a reviewer. Now, Claude is a great reviewer too, but again, it's only going to work when you merge reviewing with immersion, right? So only and only when you merge reviewing with inversion, sorry, not immersion. When you merge reviewing with inversion, can Claude do a great job at it? So what do I mean by this? What I mean by this is whenever you are asking Claude to review your work, you always ask Claude to review it with inversion. So you tell Claude that, hey, give me holes and review it based on that. Give me reasons why it will not hit its target. Give me reasons why my manager will not like this. Give me reasons why the users will always say no to this, right? The moment you mention all of this, the moment you present all of this to Claude, that's when the best outcome of Claude comes out, or that's when the best outcome of Claude happens, right? So once again, while these get built, okay, the prototype is here, so that's good. So what we have done is we've created a prototype. We've created a prototype of a notification. When I click on this notification, it opens the app. Then basically the notification was a smart nudge. So it basically tells you based on whatever your time of day is, gets your cart ready-made created, and then you can add more items to it, or you can just go ahead and place the order, right? Once you place the order, it's on the cart. Place order confirmed. track order arriving in 11 minutes, the live counter and someone moving. And then if you go ahead, what is the missing promise? You can call the delivery person, what bike is he driving, number and everything, right? So as you can see, what Claude can do is a build and full-blown prototype. And it's not really bad, right? I mean, of course, Lovable can do a great job at it, but now you can send this, right? All you have to do is you just publish this, right? If you publish to web, and I'll put the link on our chat as well for you to be able to see it for yourself. So if you just published it to web and open the link here, there you go. So you can now just share this link with anyone. I'm just going to zoom out. Yeah, you're going to share this link with anyone, and that anyone can actually see it and imagine what you want to build, right? Click on this, order, place order, home, track order, everything. So like your entire whatever you've built, right? And even with back buttons and interactivity and all of that baked in, right? It's not like I'm just going to reset the demo. It's not like you have addition to cart is also done. So it's not like it's like a static, just some images here and there and so on and so forth, right? If you see, there are interactions here, right? You can add items, it updates your cart as well. So those are like basic things. You can add something here, you can add coriander here as well, right? And it adds all of that. So you wouldn't have this otherwise if you were doing static wireframing and all of that. So prototyping, I'm sure you've already done. And yes, our synthesis is also done, which means that our user panel is ready now. So this is like a 37 page document that Claude has created. And my first user is Ramesh, right? So if you see Ramesh, you would see a little bit about their name, their city, what they do, what their household is, what the segment is, and then a little bit about their stories, a little bit about why they have churned, what was the reason, what was the trigger, how do they take decisions? Do they take decisions on delivery fee first? Do they take decisions on reliability, convenience? And then so on and so forth. Several synthetic personas are created. So you can follow this word doc, or you can use it later on as well for your own self if you want. So you see, it's a very well structured doc, right? It's ready to share. So there is Ramesh, everything about Ramesh is written here. There is Priya, 4 or 5 pages of what Priya's decision making models is. There is Sneha, Kabir, Meera, everyone is already here, right? So what is happening here is you are able to now actually go ahead and create all these virtual personas and do things on behalf, right? So I'm going to go back now to my project, right? And I'm going to do the red team thing, right? Now, what I'm going to say is now attack the plan. So far, you've created this, now attack the plan. So the red team is going to basically give me reasons why this is not going to work. So here is what. So persona one, skeptical staff engineer. What is the first objection that they can raise? The first objection that they can raise is, hey, the personalized reorder nudge isn't personalized. It's a lie we're telling ourselves. So see, Claude has given you the idea to make this, but now Claude is also giving you the idea of why people will not like it, right? So this is saying that, hey, the fact that you've personalized these notifications is not really, it's a lie. And it's going to say that, hey, the notification engine is running on this system, per user control is not there, and so on and so forth. Another objection, the fee wave trigger logic will be wrong and edge cases will make it worse, right? So you're going to talk about this. Similarly, CFO, right? If you're taking the assumption that you will be at zero margin in 90 days, this is just an assumption. I need a model, right? I haven't seen the model here. Or, this mechanics will train a subset of users to time their order because we're giving them a discount on their order after a certain while in this idea. So this will train them to time their order to always get discounts. From Kabir, they check Blinkit, Zipto, and all of that. So they will say that, hey, free delivery on my second order doesn't change my move. I will still open all the 3 apps. So this is basically the red team. This will find loopholes and plug them and figure out, what is wrong and what is working and all of that, right? So this is how the red team works, and this is how you can use Claude as a validator, right? The second way in which we can use Claude as a validator, like I said here as well, is the user panel. Now in this, what I'm going to tell Claude is, I'm going to tell Claude that, hey, now let's put the prototype in front of the people. We have the synthetic user panel that you've built. If you want, I can actually make it easier for Claude and just download this as a PDF and attach this PDF with this as well so that Claude directly has that, although it has access to this, but still I would do that. And then it's basically I'm telling that Claude that, hey, you've got all of these personas now in front of you. Simulate my prototype in front of you, right? Tell these people what. So it's simulating for Ramesh. So the walkthrough, what would Ramesh's walkthrough reaction would be, right? He reads it once, reads it again. There is a genuine surprise, not delight, but recognition. Array, it actually remembered, the items are right. So basically it simulates it. Now, I'm not saying that, it will remove the requirement of an actual user completely. But if you start using it and if you do prompting well enough, you reach a place where it's genuinely pretty interesting, where it genuinely gives you good pointers and generally simulates user behavior as well, right? So it's saying about Priya, right? She muted the notification. Then during cleaning up the phone, she deleted the app, what happened and so on and so forth, right? So for him, the situation is that, hey, you will be unable to test it with Priya because Priya doesn't even have the app. She's uninstalled the app already because you've sent so many notifications. But then let's say hypothetically, a friend has mentioned quick carts and she reinstalls and then gets the notification. And then you talk about what her reaction is, right? So it's basically going to now create that entire set of your user panel and actually create their reaction, right? Very interesting. What you can do and what I always recommend is have one Claude chat for all your user interviews. Either you put it on Notion and give Claude the access to your Notion or have it on Claude itself, wherever is fine. But all your user interviews should be in one place. And then ask Claude to keep every few days keep looking at the latest stats that have come in and create new synthetic personas or update the older ones. What will happen is in a period of few months or maybe few weeks rather, you're going to have 5 to 7 absolutely accurate personas, and then they will keep reacting on whatever you've built and you get much easier from there, right? Now, of course, you can, keep running this, keep adding more stuff from there and keep looking at it. I'm also just going to add one more prompt that is going to be around validation. So I'm just going to add that as well. So I'm just opening it. So now let's check our beliefs in the real world. What I'm doing is I'm using research mode here, right? So I'm going to say that, hey, I'm not going to, look at market landscape and all that. So what we are doing here is we are taking all the things that Claude has built, now using research mode to ensure that all our work does match with the world's research as well, right? So again, trying to use Claude as a validator, right? So there you go. It gives you a panel level verdict as well. Ramesh, yes. Priya was not there. Arvind is a maybe, but probably a no. Support. So basically, it gives you reasons why things will not work. And then you can try and keep improving this, try and keep iterating it till the time you reach a place where it becomes decently good. Now, Claude, given how real it is in terms of its responses, usually after a few iterations, you will see Claude coming back and saying you that, hey, I'm genuinely unable to find reasons to disagree. I'm genuinely unable to find people's points to disagree and so on and so forth, right? So research mode, of course, will take a bit of time. I've already shown you research mode. So I'm just going to show you the last piece of explainers, which is basically you can ask Claude to be a critic, right? So here, you've built something, you've done all of this. Now, what I want to do is I want you to be an explainer. I want you to be a critic, and then Claude can criticize whatever you've built, right? Similar to whatever we've discussed so far. Right. So that is the overall landscape of how you can use Claude as a product manager. Of course, I haven't covered every single thing. There is multitude of things that you could do. But what I've tried to cover is I've tried to cover the most fundamental 5 pillars that you can use and different from what you usually see or what you usually find. Typically, people would suggest you to connect your Slack, connect your Atlassian or Jira, or connect your email and all of that, and that's great, but that's just one part of what you can do, which is Claude as an intern. But as a brainstorming partner using Inversion, as a researcher creating synthetic users and reaching back to them, as a builder to build prototypes, and then of course as a validator to build a red team to create panel reactions and all of that, is where you can really use Claude, especially for your PM discovery work, right? No, I mean, of course, your execution becomes easy when you use Claude as a PM intern, but product discovery is fundamentally becoming very different in the age of AI. And using Claude is one of the great ways in which you can actually make a very easy pass at it. Right. So that is all I had for you. Now, of course, the prompt book that I promised. So I'm just going to share that with you as well. Let me just put it on a link. 1 minute. Coming for some reason. Yeah, it's coming now. So in this prompting guide, what I've done is I have added both. I have added the prompts for doing the things that we did today in this session as well, whereas I added prompts of how can you, basically make it work like a red team, make it work like, whatever we studied today. So it's not like we've only done whatever we have. Yeah, there it is. So it should be available for you now. Please do have a look at the prompting field guide. It's for PM. So basically what I've done is I've looked at all the things. I've broken down to intern, partner, researcher, builder, and given you prompts for each of the four things that we've discussed today. So if you just scroll this down, you would see this. So there is ways by which you can get Claude to work as your intern, as a partner, and then I've given you prompts, latest prompts of what doesn't work. This is the anatomy of our most of our prompts, and then of course trying to prevent it from hallucination and so on and so forth. So first I've given you synthesis prompts, and I can basically show you this. Then I've given you inversion prompts, red team prompts, assumption falsification, user panel validation, prototype specs. So I've given you all these prompts that you can use very easily in your day-to-day work, and that should be good for you as well. Right. And yeah, like I said, it's a fairly detailed prompt. It's only covering the kind of things that we've done today. So discovery, interview synthesis, tear down, feedback, all of that is what I've done here. So it's pretty useful. Just do take it out, check it out. It's going to be useful. And of course, if you have any feedback, you can let me know. Right. So that is all I had for this session. Thank you so much for joining. I know we are over time, a little bit over time. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you have a great weekend, and I really hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for joining.